Hey there. It's me, Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the comment, thanks. Friday, June 27th. With the kids gathered on the porch cheering me on like I was in the Tour de France, I rode past Hope Haven 3 or 4 times, showing off shamelessly. The last time the street was clear, so I sprinted for speed, back horizontal, and I could feel the long blue and red streamers tugging sharply at my hair, whipping straight back in the windstream. Thunderous applause from the eager troops. I slowed down, cornered up a curb cut to the sidewalk, and did a victory lap, hands clasped above my head. As I walked the bike back up the ramp leading to the porch, I said, "There's someone else who deserves more cheers." Sarah Beth Holding took her first steps on a new right leg today. When the new cheering subsided, I continued. She didn't do just a step or two, she made it the length of the walking ramp. That was a 20-foot section of floor with traction strips, enclosed on either side by arm rails. The leg wasn't cosmetic by a long shot. It looked like something from the interior of an airplane wing merged together with the bottom half of a mannequin. It fit clear around her waist like a second pair of pants. Sarah grumbled about the bulk it would add to her waistline. On the right side of the garment there was a stump-size cup extending down to all the mechanical rods and hinges, to a shoe over a plastic foot on the bottom. They helped her into it, and they began to work with her on standing and moving. The knee and ankle would bend, but the way that the unit balanced from her hip would keep it all from collapsing. Since she couldn't raise the leg much from her short stump, she had to raise her hip, rocking from side to side. It was tremendous exertion, and she was exhausted. But since it was cooler that afternoon, she had asked me to do the bicycle exhibition. Billy came up to me as I took off the pink helmet. "I love those long ribbons," he teased. I reached back to unfasten them and grinned evilly. "Would you like to wear them, Billy?" He backpedaled, holding his hand up, and pointed to his bald head. "Nothing to fasten it to, Julie. You've never heard of tape?" I chortled and moved toward him. He retreated even more rapidly. About that time, the cab pulled up to take Kelly to the bus station. Kelly leaned down to hug Sarah and kiss her cheek. "It's hard to believe we've known each other for only 2 weeks. You and Annie are practically my best friends." "Right, okay? Let me know how this all turns out." I picked up her bag to carry it to the cab. When we got out of earshot from the others, she said, "Annie, Mark, what you guys are doing is so cool. I'll pray for the best for both of you." "And we'll pray for you, kid," I said. "Some people see the scars, but I see the second most beautiful woman I know." She gasped, grinned, and kissed me on the lips. More thunderous applause from the porch. I blushed. "Did Sarah tell you? We're not officially engaged or anything, and it probably won't happen, but we want you in our wedding, okay? Wouldn't miss it for the world," she grinned. "You'll make a beautiful bride." "But what will Sarah Beth wear?" Saturday, June 28th and Sunday, June 29th. Saturday morning found Sarah sleeping late, recuperating from the stresses of her vigorous rehab session and her 6th round of chemo. So I dressed in green cutoffs, a tee from a Lilith's Fair concert, and my favorite sandals. Sometimes I think the sandals would be the hardest thing to give up when I go back to being Mark. Maybe I'll buy a guy's pair. Roberta, a tiny 7-year-old with a serious heart problem, and I played on the floor of the East Lounge, where most of the younger kids hang out, doing dolls and pretend games. She was giggling over all the funny voices I made for the dolls and stuffed beanbag animals spread on the carpet in front of us. Roberta looked up at me with her big brown eyes. "Your nails are so pretty, Annie. Can I have big nails when I grow up?" "When you grow up, I imagine you can do lots of things, Roberta." I sincerely hoped that I wasn't lying, that she would grow up. Would you paint my fingernails, Annie? Well, I would love to, but I would have to know it's okay, with your mommy. Roberta was so tiny that her fingernails were almost microscopic. Isn't she coming this afternoon? Her mother worked as a waitress at the pancake house. Roberta nodded. I will probably be out this afternoon, but if she can leave me a note that it's okay, I can do it right after supper or else tomorrow afternoon. Toenails, too. Roberta beamed at me and nodded. I heard the front door open, and then a voice boom out behind me. That's what I like to see, my oldest daughter acting her age. It was Mr. Holding. Mrs. H shushed him. I turned and hugged them and pecked them on their cheeks, greeting them as Mom and Dad. Then I introduced them to Roberta. Mrs. H bent down and chatted with the tiny girl, then we excused ourselves and went upstairs. Sarah was awake, but was still in her nightgown. She was delighted to see her parents after 2 weeks apart, that they stood up and hopped over to them to hug them. Mom. Dad. I walked yesterday. I had to hold on to the rails and I rolled back and forth like a drunken sailor, but I walked. Mrs. Holding helped Sarah to the bathroom so she could clean up and get dressed. Mr. H told me how things were going on the home front, and how they had missed us both so much they had gotten up at 6 to come see us. We've already swung by Westlands College, he said. I touched my finger to my mouth. Shh, I whispered. Somebody figured out this week that I wasn't Julie. We can trust her, and she's left for home anyway, but we do have to be careful. Where is Julie? We were able to check in early at the motel and left her there. Didn't want too many Julys wandering around here. As soon as those two get together, we'll go pick her up and have lunch together. Since Sarah seems tired, we thought we'd spend the afternoon in the motel room, just visiting. You're welcome to come with us, or you can have some time off. A little time off sounds nice, thanks. I haven't had time to do any serious bicycling since we've been here, and I could meet you back here for supper afterwards. That was a plan. After Sarah came out of the bathroom, I slipped in and changed into the red silk blouse with black trim and the black skirt that had surprised me, so when I unpacked it, they had decided on a Vietnamese restaurant. The real Julie laughed out loud when she saw me at the motel, hugged me, and said, I knew something that sexy would bring out the girl in you. She whipped out her camera and took a picture. Don't worry, only Joan will know that it's you in the picture, and not me. It was a long, slow lunch, and we enjoyed talking, but I was also glad to get back to Hope Haven and change. I was wearing low heels, but I was glad to kick them off. I went from silk to spandex by changing into my Ocelot's uniform. I started toward the door, then went back and clipped in the red and blue streamer ribbons. They looked silly, but it was kind of fun having them tug at my hair in the wind, and the kids insisted that I should wear them as part of my bicycling uniform. I dragged the bike outdoors and walked it to the beginning of a long bike trail that followed the river, then crossed it and headed up into the foothills. It was a little warm, so I made sure my water bottle stayed full. A little later, another rider in racing uniform passed me going the other direction. I sensed him turning around and looking back at me. The uniform was that of Blazing Saddles, a racing team here in the city. Soon, I heard the engaging of bicycled gears behind me and saw him approaching. I waved and smiled. I think I remembered seeing him at a race last fall. He was bulky for a racer, perhaps the kind of guy who biked to lose weight. A beginner or a category 4, as I recalled. Easy target. Name's Eric, he asked. Want a race? Name's Annie. How far? There's a burger joint about 3 miles up into the hills from here, where the path crosses McGifford. We'll stop there and you can buy me a Coke when I win. What if I win? Unlikely, he grinned. If I win, you can wear these ribbons on the ride back. His face clouded, then he smiled. It'll never happen. Someone as pretty as you can't race that fast, and I have a better bike. Okay, it's a deal. In my best Picard voice, I said, Warp 7. On my mark. Engage. We were off. I was right. He wasn't very fast. Made chauvinist assumptions, too. Julie could have taken him, too. I stayed a couple of yards behind him, listening to him breathe hard. I could hear my ribbons flapping in the breeze, too, along with the clicking of very fast wheels. I paced him as we crossed the bridge and began the slow rise into the hills. I lost a lot of yards on the bridge, because after he exited a family of walkers started on in my direction. I slowed down seriously to get past them safely, then began pumping. Still, I wasn't concerned. I could see him slowing. We were about 2 miles along the course, when I began an uphill sprint. Over, I yelled, so he'd know I was passing. As I sailed past, I looked backward, grinned, reached behind my helmet and flapped my ribbons at him. Even then I wasn't going as fast as I could, yet I continued to increase the difference. I pulled over into the restaurant parking lot and waited. Neither of us smelled too good at that point, but I felt great and he was gasping. Come on in, you can buy me a Coke now. Too pretty, huh? I asked as I slipped off my helmet. We walked in, keeping the bikes next to a window where we could watch them. The air conditioning felt good. We ordered soda and fries and I let him catch his breath. Wow, you're good. Are you a pro? Nah, not nearly. Maybe someday, though. For now, I just hustle sodas and fries from unsuspecting victims. I smiled. He continued with small talk about where he was from and what he was taking at the university. Since I'm inexperienced about such things, I suddenly realized he was hitting on me. He invited me to a supper and a movie. Sorry, Kevin. You're sweet, but I'm taken. I enjoyed the race, though. I had almost decided not to make him go through with wearing the ribbons. He asked me where I was staying. I told him that I was staying with someone at Hope Haven. Hope Haven. Isn't that full of cripples and sickies? Yuck. How can you stand it? I just smiled at him, shook my head, reached back, and unclipped the ribbons. Please remember that you and I are only one skid on gravel next to a moving car away from being residents there ourselves. Sorry. I was going to let you off the hook with wearing the ribbons back, but that stupid remark made me change my mind, cutie. It was fun to follow him back, watching Julie's team ribbons fluttering in the wind. I was lucky that his hair was long enough that I could pin them down securely. He kept his head very low, hoping nobody would see him. Of course, I'd encourage him, calling out, looking good, dollface. When we got back to the river path, we stopped. He let me unhook the ribbons, and apologized. He asked if we could meet again. Sorry, I said. I really am taken. And she's a real fox, too. The next morning I went to church and Sunday dinner with the Holdings, wearing the great khaki dress that Julie would own next fall. When I told her the story about our encounter with Carrie, Julie said, "No wonder when I was home last weekend Carrie scowled and turned the other way when she saw me. Hey, Annie, you can represent me in cat fights anytime." I also offered to fix her up with Eric the beribboned bike racer, but she declined. Sarah napped after lunch, and her folks left. I walked downstairs and went to see what little kids might be around. As I went around the corner, the door opened. It was 4 girls from Fort Russell. They had come to see Sarah. At least one of them knew that Julie was at basketball camp. So should I greet them and act like I was Julie, just here for the weekend? No, I don't think so. They knew Julie well enough they would know the difference. I waited around the corner until they stopped to ask somebody where to find Sarah. When they went up the stairs, I slipped out the front door. I spotted their car, so I would be able to tell when they left. I took out walking. Every now and then, I'd go back near Hope Haven and see that their car was still there. I stopped at a woman's clothing and accessories shop and browsed. That hairband would match my maroon skirt. And there was a little chain with a maroon stone. Nice. I was lucky to have my purse with me, and so I brought them. By the time I got back, the car was gone. Sarah said it was an awkward visit, with all the girls trying not to look at her missing leg. But she enjoyed them being there anyway. She just wished that the girl who had been her best friend would have come, but she still couldn't deal with Sarah's situation. That evening, Sarah and I had an appointment to play beauty parlor with a lovely young lady. She had her note from Mommy. When I showed her my blue polish and Sarah's red, I asked which she wanted. Both, she grinned. I want them to look like your bike ribbons. So red blue they were. Roberta also loved it that Sarah and I were wearing identical new earrings that had purchased when we were out with her folks and Julie during the afternoon. Each one had a crossbar from which hung 6 or 8 rows of inch-long strings of miniature beads in bright colors, so they rattled nicely when anyone touched them. And Roberta loved touching them, asking me to pick her up so she could make them rattle. Roberta didn't have pierced ears, and we were sorry that those didn't come in clip-ons, she loved them so. Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access. Link in the comment, thanks.